The arcade run-and gun has a firm place in the hearts of gamers everywhere, and one of the best arcade run-and guns is the Capcom classic Commando. The cabinet inspired excitement in whatever arcade it happened to be in. Mission 1985 for the Switch attempts to capture all that nostalgic goodness and package it into a game that is considered a love letter to Commando. For this review of Mission 1985, the developers kindly provided me a review code, so let's get into it. As I mentioned, this game plays homage to Commando in nearly every way, with some notable exceptions. The game is basically an overhead run-and-gun that you can play alongside a friend if you have one. This is the first way that the game differs from Commando. The main issue there is that there is no online play, and it's all about couch co-op. I guess in that sense it does capture the spirit of the arcade, because in order to play alongside a friend on an arcade cabinet, you had to be in the same place. There's not much in the way of story in Mission 1985, which is the same year that Commando released in the arcades. I never play these games for story anyways, so that's okay. All there is to know is that there is a lot of killing to be done, and it's not going to be done on its own. The main villain in the game, General Hector, has an army, and you must destroy it. This game is going for that arcade experience, and this will appeal to any gamer who grew up in the arcades. The controls are pretty basic. You can move and shoot in 8 directions and throw grenades. Simple is good when it comes to the arcades. In order to destroy General Hector and his army, you must traverse 11 levels of 2D overhead run-and-gun levels that are broken up by 3D boat levels that remind me a lot of the driving level in Operation Thunderbolt. The boat levels are a great way to break up the monotony of the overhead 2D levels, and I will always praise developers for finding ways to keep the gameplay fresh as they do in Mission 1985. Your basic attack consists of a machine gun, and you can also lob grenades at your enemies. During your playthrough, which should take you roughly 4 to 5 hours to complete, you will come across 2 weapons, a triple shot and a flamethrower. Both weapons have limited ammo, so you can't fire them like a madman. Out of the 2 special weapons, my favorite is definitely the flamethrower due to its great reach and absolute destruction. It's worth mentioning that when you die, you do not lose your weapon, which I think is pretty cool. Each level is filled with soldiers to kill, tanks, and motorcycles. It's standard run-and-gun stuff and a little bland. The graphics in this game are overall good, except that some of the animations they used are jank. For example, when you destroy a tank or a jeep, you'd expect a big explosion, right? Well, nothing. Not even a puff of smoke. When you kill an enemy though, it's not the same story. You actually get a lot of blood and gore. I like that, but I wish that the animations were cool throughout the game, and not just when you kill enemies. The other thing about the graphics is that they seem a bit dated, and I know that they are going for a retro look and feel to mimic Commando, but they could have pulled it off with a more polished look. The way that the hero moves feels a lot like the NES version of Commando, which in my opinion is better than the arcade game. Anywho, this is a tough game. You get 1-hit deaths in this game, and you will be dying a lot, and that's because the enemies fire with deadly precision. If you see a grenade coming your way, you are most likely going to get killed by it. It's that precise, and I'm not complaining about the difficulty, because after all, that's how we rolled back in the arcades. But it can be off-putting to some. Luckily, the game allows you to start and continue your game with up to 9 lives. The other cool thing about this game is that it remembers the last level you beat and lets you continue from there. The game also has tons of POWs for you to free, and the interesting thing about that is that once you free them, they say thank you, much like the prisoners do in Metal Slug. It's pretty clear that the developers are fans of both Commando and Metal Slug. The other cool thing that happens when you rescue a hostage is that they give you a life, which given the game's difficulty is a welcome addition. The enemies in this game are downright deadly. However, the bosses in this game, with the exception of General Hector, are all pushovers. You will have more difficulty getting to them than actually beating them in the fight. I don't know how I feel about this, but it seems that they shouldn't be so easy to beat. The music and sounds in this game aren't anything worth mentioning. All I can say about them is that they aren't as memorable as the music and sounds in Commando. Another item that I believe is sorely missing from this game is a variety of weapons. It would have been cool to include a couple more weapons to vary up the killing a little bit. Another cool addition to this game would have been a vehicle or two for you to ride and destroy enemies with. I get that this game is trying to be a love letter to Commando, but it can still do that while adding interesting gameplay elements to spice things up. Overall, this is a so-so overhead run-and-gun that you may have fun with for a few hours, but after beating it, there's no real incentive for you to pick it back up. But if you feel so inclined, you can pick up Mission 1985 on the eShop for $10. And that's going to be it for the Big Retro Show. If you enjoyed this review, drop a comment, leave a like, and consider subscribing to the Big Retro Show.